One for the Star Wars nerds, may the 4th be with you, or at least when this video drops, happy Revenge of the 5th, I guess? Yeah, today we shall be doing a discussion video ranking all of the current canonical Star Wars projects, under the tyranny of Disney of course, in the form of a tier list, and I also thought it'd be fun to include the brand new Tales of the Underworld shorts, and share my DVD and Blu-ray collection for what I currently own of Star Wars. So without any further delay, let's begin with the movies. Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, does hold up for the most part, but I do feel that is childhood nostalgia talking there. It's a very ambitious film that just sadly did not live up to audience expectations. It can be very rough to sit through at times thanks to the awkward dialogue and wooden acting, but it does have some redeeming moments and I do enjoy the final battle on Naboo. In recent years I have gained a newfound appreciation for this film thanks to the Darth Plagueis novel by James Luceno, which I know is no longer considered canon, but it does expand on the lore surrounding Anakin's creation by the Force, essentially fighting back against Plagueis and his experiments to prolong life. Overall, it's a decent enough film with some incredible music and fight choreography, which I feel does make up for the blunders throughout, so I'm going to be kind and place this in the B tier. Moving on, we have Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, my least favourite of the prequel trilogy, a very messy film with some frustrating acting and dialogue. The forced romance between Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala is exactly that, no pun intended, but forced. And it's supposed to be secretive and scandalous because a Jedi cannot have such attachments, but instead their story overshadows a lot of the positives where, to be honest, you just want to wash your eyeballs with bleach after witnessing such awkward chemistry. But I do like Kenobi's story in this film. That's by far the best part, following bounty hunter Jango Fett, which leads to the discovery of the clone army, which was commissioned many years ago by Jedi Master Cypher Dyas. Again, I will say, expanded material does improve the prequel films. I'd recommend playing through the Bounty Hunter video game that further expands on Jango's story, plus the Plagueis novel provides detail on the creation of the clone army as well. But despite that, and a few decent action scenes, not really much could save this film, apart from maybe Dexter Jetser.
Obi-Wan! Hello, sexy.
But even with Dex, this film is going in the D tier. Celebrating its 20th anniversary, we have Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And this film is arguably more grounded and story-focused, where the acting does improve. The writing is still a bit rough around the edges with its cheesy dialogue, lest we forget Vader's pathetic "no" moments. But I do enjoy this film. Seeing Anakin give in to his fear of losing the love of his life, his fall to the dark side is generally quite saddening, turning his back on the Jedi Council, and his master Obi-Wan Kenobi where he feels mistreated. And it becomes his undoing, where the inner conflict and hatred festers, creating one of cinema's greatest villains. And despite being elevated by meme culture in recent years,
this is where the fun begins.
I will say this is one of my favourite Star Wars films. I adore the music, the fight on Mustafar is beautifully made, and even with its flaws, and just the flaws of the prequels generally, you cannot deny the scope and passion that George Lucas injected into these films. He had a vision, and although these films could have been so much better, this is one that I do fondly enjoy. Maybe a controversial opinion, but I'm going to place this in the S tier category. Moving into the original trilogy now, we have Episode 4, A New Hope, the classic space opera fantasy of good versus evil. There's more to Luke Skywalker than going to Tashi Station and picking up some power converters, because if trained, he could become a Jedi Knight thanks to old Ben Kenobi. And becoming the savior of the galaxy, Luke enters the world of the Rebellion, fighting back against the evil Empire and their new weapon, the Death Star. I love this film for the hero's journey in particular. There's so much originality and world building that really does capture your imagination where anything is possible, and I think it's fair to say this film is going in the A tier. Next up we have Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, and like many, this is my favourite Star Wars film. From the battle on Hoth to the duel on Cloud City, there's never a dull moment with this film. It expands on the wonder and the mythology of the Force. The scenes between Luke and Yoda are fun, where he attempts to train Luke to face off against Darth Vader. Sadly though, Luke's overconfidence does get the better of him, like father like son, but even through learning a harsh lesson, he doesn't give up, and I think that's a very admirable quality. I do also love the bounty hunter scene in particular, with the continued moments with Boba Fett. Seeing him leave Cloud City with Han Solo frozen in the carbonite block, such an iconic sequence that includes my favourite Star Wars ship, the Slave One. Even though Disney doesn't want us to call it that anymore, it's still the Slave One.
With the new LEGO Star Wars Slave One!
Overall, an incredible movie that divides our heroes. Definitely this is going in the S-tier category. Bringing the gang back together, we wrap up the cliffhangers created in Empire with Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. And leading to an organic and satisfactory conclusion, I really do love this film. Some moments are reflective of the original film, with there being a second Death Star, but beyond that, seeing a more disciplined Luke Skywalker embracing the ways of the Jedi made for more excellent story progression. The entire opening sequence rescuing Han from Jabba the Hutt is one of my favourite parts of the whole franchise, and it's great to see the final showdown between Luke and Vader, where the Emperor is revealed to be the master manipulator once again, only for Vader to embrace the good and defy his master to protect his son. It's a fantastic film, seeing the galaxy released from the tyranny of the Empire, and I'm going to place this one in the A tier. A couple of additional DVDs I have in my collection. This is the Star Wars Trilogy bonus disc, which came with box sets featuring episodes 4, 5, and 6, and it details some documentaries of the behind the scenes of the original trilogy, along with some other extras. Although no longer considered to be canon, I do really like the 2D animated Clone Wars cartoons by Genndy Tartakovsky. Some great action-packed animations, over about 2 hours worth of content overall, and these shorts were supposed to bridge the gap between episodes 2 and 3 before the release of Revenge of the Sith. And if you like shows like Samurai Jack and other Tartakovsky projects, then you will definitely find something to enjoy from these shorts. Moving on to the sequel trilogy, or Disney trilogy if you prefer, we have Episode 7, The Force Awakens. And I'll be honest, I defended this movie for the longest time when it first came out, but ultimately, on reflection, this is just a setup for unbearable disappointment going forward. I really had hoped it would have paved the way for more refreshing storytelling, but no, it just steals attributes from the original trilogy in the hopes that you won't notice, and the glaring lack of coherent storytelling going beyond this becomes all the more apparent the more you dissect the sequels. I will say the film is overall well directed and shot. I think J.J. Abrams did a good job in that respect. I like the return of practical effects compared to the prequels, which is welcomed in a lot of areas, but that doesn't defend the pitiful storytelling. Maybe I'm being too harsh, but I'm going to place this film in the D tier. I haven't seen this film since about maybe 2017, and I don't plan to rewatch it anytime soon. Likewise with Episode 8 The Last Jedi, I find this film to be inconsistent and silly in many areas. It picks up shortly after the events of The Force Awakens, where the story revolves around an elongated chase sequence through hyperspace, with the First Order waiting for the Resistance to run out of fuel to crush the Rebellion once and for all. Luke Skywalker is mistreated and just horribly written in this film, becoming Jake Skywalker, as actor Mark Hamill has said before, and I can see what director Rian Johnson was trying to accomplish, but this polarizing vision just doesn't belong in an established franchise where subverting expectations doesn't really benefit the franchise or the trilogy as a whole. It's just a tedious film that doesn't really enhance anything in terms of an overarching story. I'm just going to be blunt, I hate this film. I'm going to place this in the E tier. The same can be said for Damage Control the movie, aka Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Yes, I do unfortunately hate this film also, so much that I don't even own it in the collection, and don't really plan on buying it ever. I've even been thinking about getting rid of The Force Awakens and Last Jedi, since I just don't have plans to revisit these films. Somehow, Palpatine returns, and has supposedly been hiding in the corner of the galaxy, pulling the strings from far away to transfer his essence into his granddaughter, Rey Skywalker. Big reveal. Yeah, I find this film honestly fascinating in terms of behind-the-scenes kind of thing because of the backlash and the drama relating to how incoherent and how sort of on the spot a lot of the storytelling was. When the best part of your film is an alien called Babu Frick, that really should speak volume that you've made a mistake. Nothing could save this film for me, just a terrible bookend, defeating the Emperor once again, but in the most Marvel Cinematic Universe way possible. Yeah, again, an E-tier film. I have no plans to revisit Episode 9 either. One of two anthology movies, we have Solo, a Star Wars story, which I genuinely do really like Solo. It's a goofy but harmless origin story for Han Solo, showing how he becomes the cheeky smuggler we love in A New Hope. Sadly, this film suffered from being released less than 6 months after The Last Jedi. Talk about oversaturation, and the fallout from that film left a bitter taste. So if you've not seen Solo, I don't blame you, but I genuinely would recommend it. Some moments are honestly questionable, such as hinting that Lando has had a sexual altercation with his droid, but beyond that, I do like the on-screen chemistry between the characters, especially young Han and Chewie. The love interest Kira, played by Emilia Clarke, genuinely one of my favourite parts of the film. I love that character, and the train heist sequence is both memorable and exciting. I'm going to be bold and place this in the B tier. Enhancing the original film, Rogue One, a Star Wars story, has aged incredibly well, and for me, it only gets better with every viewing. I love the style and the characters, especially K2SO. It's a very inventive idea, generating a story based on the opening crawl of A New Hope, and I really like how this film feels more grounded and less fantasy-esque, with characters like Vader being used sparingly. It's of course not without its flaws. I think the CG Tarkin has aged very badly, but it was a revolutionary idea at the time, and to even try and make it work I think is commendable. Overall, this is one of my favourite Star Wars films, and I would personally say it's the best project from the Disney era, for sure an S-tier film in my opinion. Next we have the Clone Wars animated movie, which I love this lenticular slipcover with Anakin there and then Asajj Ventress. I've only seen this film a few times, and although I can respect it for leading into the beloved animated series, the film is very childish in comparison. It does introduce Ahsoka Tano, Anakin's Padawan apprentice, who's basically forced onto him, again no pun intended, but she's very annoying in this film, to put things politely, and the rest of the story is really just about saving Jabba the Hutt's son, Rotta. The animation hasn't aged very well, but the voice acting is good for the most part. It just doesn't really hold up in my opinion, sadly. I'm going to place this in the E tier. The Clone Wars series, on the other hand, despite a rocky start, the show really did grow with its audience. You can see how the show becomes progressively more mature and intricate with its lore expansions, adding much needed depth to the prequel trilogy. Anakin becomes a much more likable character, and you can see why his fall to the dark side is all the more tragic. Ahsoka Tano does steal the show by the end, and that's not a bad thing at all. Her character vastly improves over time, plus I enjoy how this series does humanize the clone troopers. If you've never watched this series, I'd recommend giving it a shot. It is goofy and fun, but eventually the darker shift in tone makes it even more enjoyable. And it's a shame the series suffered a huge hit thanks to its cancellation when Disney took over the franchise, where some stories remain untold, and I've done videos about this subject on the channel for those that are interested. But getting back onto the tier list, of course, this is going in S tier without any question. The Tales anthology shows told in the Clone Wars style are some of my new favourite parts of Disney Star Wars, and these are custom-made Blu-ray sets that I've made myself. I haven't done the covers for them, but I have made the discs, so here is the one for Tales of the Jedi. And this series sees Count Dooku's fall to the dark side and looks at Ahsoka's life after Order 66. Overall very good. I'm going to place this in the B tier. Tales of the Empire, on the other hand, was overall pretty disappointing in my opinion. It tells the story of Morgan Elsbeth, a side character in The Mandalorian and Ahsoka show, and why she decides to side with the Empire. Plus, we find out what happened to Barriss Offee following the Clone Wars, and I did like her story a lot more and how her path led to redemption. I'm going to place this show in the C tier. Tales of the Underworld is fresh in my mind, and I really liked it. Ventress gets a surprise continuation since her story was wrapped up in this novel, Dark Disciple, which was written based on cancelled Clone Wars episode scripts, and it was fun and felt like somewhat of a backdoor pilot revolving around The Path, a secret organization helping Jedi survivors of Order 66. And then unexpectedly, the other half of the show, Cad Bane, is given some attention, seeing his origins, growing up on the streets, and adapting to a life of crime and revenge. I'm going to place this in the B tier. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any physical media releases as of yet, and I've not made any custom ones, but The Bad Batch is such a great show and continuation of the Clone Wars, seeing the experimental clones of Squad 99 navigate navigate the rise of the Empire, clone troopers are now being decommissioned and replaced and experimented on, where the Bad Batch try to save their brothers whilst protecting the unusual clone child Omega. Sadly, the show does have a lot of episodes that either feel like filler, just as a generalization, or just feel like side quests with little to no impact on the main plot, but it is a show that if you stick with it, the ending is most definitely worth it. I will say my favourite part of the entire show was the character Crosshair. He turns on his brothers at the beginning and starts serving the Empire, only to learn that they simply don't value him. And he has the best episodes of the show, being the Solitary Clone and the Outpost, both featured in Season 2. Overall, a very enjoyable spin-off which I will place in the A tier. Star Wars Rebels was my introduction to the animated side of the franchise, and although the first couple of seasons are arguably aimed at younger audiences, it does have some excellent character progression and entertaining writing. I like the family feel of the crew of the Ghost, with this being Ezra Bridger's story, and I'd say the show really hit its stride by the end of Season 2, bridging the gap between this and the Clone Wars by reintroducing certain characters. Season 3 is my favourite run of episodes, with Darth Maul and Thrawn stealing the show, and Season 4 has some very bizarre story ideas, such as introducing the World Between Worlds concept, but generally speaking, it's a fun show where you really attach yourself to these characters, and this one again is going in the A tier. Andor is easily my favourite live-action Star Wars show. Yes, it is a slow burn, but it's the perfect combination of impeccable writing, acting, and character building, all of which is done for the vast majority on practical sets, and I genuinely don't dislike a single character from this show. It's such a shame we are only getting 2 seasons worth of content, but maybe that's a good thing, leaving the audience wanting more. But with 2 seasons and Rogue One, I'd say this has the makings of the perfect trilogy of content. As of the time of recording this video, Season 2 is still airing with 6 episodes left. I'm loving all the Gorman-themed stories, and going back to Season 1, the prison story arc was just unforgettable. I love this, the music was beautiful throughout. For sure, an S-tier show. Next up we have The Mandalorian, where the first 2 seasons make for a solid space western. A lone bounty hunter gets more than he bargained for thanks to an unexpected responsibility of looking after an alien child. Of course, that being Grogu, Baby Yoda, Disney's biggest marketing cash cow of the past few years. And Mando does learn a lot about himself during this time and how he manages to deliver the child to the Jedi, where Luke Skywalker takes him to become a Padawan. And this felt like a bittersweet ending, but sadly the 3rd season is just a complete letdown for me. It feels forced and unnecessary bringing back Baby Yoda just to keep the cash flowing, and I'm going to be kind and place this show at the A tier, but Season 3 was a huge letdown and disappointment in my eyes. Likewise, so was the Book of Boba Fett, which doesn't even have a physical release despite Mando Season 3 being out on Blu-ray. And yes, Boba Fett is essentially responsible for undoing a lot of what makes the first 2 seasons of Mando so enjoyable. And this is Mando 2.5. We see Boba Fett's return after the events of Episode 6. He decides to become a crime lord, taking over Jabba's palace, but this show is just a mess. It devalues what made Boba a stoic and powerful presence. He doesn't really suit the role of a crime lord in my eyes. He's then ejected from the show halfway through, where we pick up on Mando's story instead. I did enjoy seeing the bounty hunter Cad Bane in live action and how they referenced unfinished Clone Wars episodes that by rights should have been made by now. Disney is literally sitting on easy money there, but overall this show was just an embarrassing spin-off. I'm going to place this in the D tier, in my eyes just a huge missed opportunity. The Obi-Wan Kenobi spin-off could have been so much better as well, where I did enjoy the performance from Ewan McGregor, but a lot of this show felt unnecessary by the end and just didn't really enhance the conflict between him and Darth Vader. I was really enjoying the show for the most part, but Reva, the third sister Inquisitor, was such a generic character that contributed very little despite stealing the show. The visuals are dull and uninteresting for a good majority, and by the 4th episode, hiding a young Princess Leia under a trench coat in a crowded military fortress, just pathetic. This could have been so much better. I'm going to place this show in the C tier. It would have been lower, but I do enjoy the final fight where we see Hayden's face beneath the Vader mask, and I really loved that sequence along with the voice being scrambled and a mixture between Anakin and Darth Vader's iconic vocals.
Anakin's gone. I'm what remains.
In many ways, the Ahsoka show feels like Rebels Season 5 being a continuation where Ezra Bridger successfully removed himself and Grand Admiral Thrawn from the known galaxy at the end of Rebels, and then it's rumoured in a post-Empire world that Thrawn is planning to return as heir to the Empire, and Ahsoka wants to put an end to this, and I do enjoy Rosario Dawson playing the live-action incarnation of the character, but this show, in my eyes, could have been so much better. The writing is hit or miss, but for the most part is okay. It was great to see moments set during the Clone Wars in live action, and I did enjoy seeing Thrawn's success by the end, which was overall very satisfying. I was hoping we would see Thrawn and Ezra surviving together perhaps, despite being on opposite sides of conflict, maybe even depending on each other for survival. I think that's an angle worth exploring, but otherwise, it's a decent enough show, and I look forward to seeing where the second season goes. I'm going to place this show in the B tier. Next up we have a relatively recent show, Skeleton Crew, which does not have a physical media release, but similar to how the Solo movie was ignored thanks to the poor reception of The Last Jedi, history has a funny way of repeating itself, with The Acolyte show souring people's expectations of future Star Wars projects. Skeleton Crew released afterwards and was ignored for a very long time. And it's a shame because I'm guilty of doing this also. The only reason I gave it a chance anyway was because I'd heard that Jude Law's character was overall very interesting, and the show itself was innocent enough. Kids living their lives on a hidden planet accidentally leave their world on a pirate vessel, enlisting the help of an untrustworthy pirate to help get them home. It's a simple enough story, but enjoyable without it being overbearing. I'd recommend checking it out. I'm going to place this in the B tier. Star Wars Visions is an exciting project that I'd say breathes new life into what stories are possible within the Star Wars franchise, and told in various animation styles, mostly Japanese anime, there's some fantastic one-off stories to appreciate. Having said that, I do like how some of the more popular stories such as The Ronin, The Village Bride, and The Ninth Jedi are getting sequels in an upcoming Volume 3, and The Ninth Jedi is even getting its own series, so the future does appear bright for Visions, and I can't wait to see what's next for this pocket of storytelling. I enjoyed it so much I actually made custom Blu-rays for both Volume 1 and 2, which I've done a video looking at this particular Blu-ray set on the channel for those that are interested, and I recently made a Blu-ray of Volume 2, so I'm going to place Visions in the A tier category. Finally, we have Resistance, The Acolyte, and The Young Jedi Adventures. I haven't watched any of these shows, so I'm just going to place them in the bottom tier. The latter is literally just a kid's show, so obviously no interest in checking that out, but I have seen some clips of Resistance and it just doesn't appeal to me. The animation style seems very lazy and the writing just seems very blech, for lack of a word. And then The Acolyte, oh boy, the discourse that show has caused online, what an absolute mess. It's been cancelled anyway, and no surprise from what I've heard, but I don't have any plans to check out that series whatsoever. That's going to do it for my collection overview and tier list looking at the current canonical projects of Star Wars. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to leave me a like down below. Let me know in the comments, do you agree or disagree with any of my choices throughout? I know opinions on Star Wars can be quite divisive, to put things politely, so by all means drop some comments below and let me know your thoughts and opinions. And for more content, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, DVD Review Studios.
Are you threatening me?